I'm Dr. Cindy, and welcome to the Positively Altered podcast. I am a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and on the podcast, we love to discuss all things with a health-related twist, absolutely no filter, and we just see what comes up with our very favorite guests that we have on. Today is going to be really interesting because it goes back to basics, something that you were actually born with. Have you heard about genetic testing? I'm sure you have. It's all over social media. But have you actually heard the word nutrigenomics? Do you know what it means? Does it scare you? My next guest is going to be back in just a minute. We're going to discuss all things genetics and maybe a few things on the side so that we can overcome some of the mysteries, get you comfortable, and realize why it's so important to understand what you're made up of. So just take a seat, grab a quick something to drink. We've got a couple sponsors that are really important to me, and we are going to be right back with today's guest.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back. I'm glad you hung tight through our sponsors because they are really important. But just as important is my guest today, my friend, Dr. Chad Yarbrough. Chad, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Oh my gosh, it's great to see you. I'm so excited about this because you have started an organization, a company called MaxGenLabs, in which you're doing some genetic testing. And I want to talk all things genes today because everybody's talking about it, right? It's all over social media, TikTok, Instagram. And I think there's some really great information, but I also think there's some really bad information that's circulating about genetics. Would you agree with that?
Probably. I would most definitely agree.
Okay, so let's dive into what's great about MaxGenLabs and what's important. And I think the very first thing to hit on is what exactly are you doing? What is the lab? What is the testing? And then let's just go and address the privacy issue. I'm going to let you just tell everybody what that's all about.
Yeah, privacy's been kind of a big deal in genetic testing. Traditionally, most labs people run, A1C, blood sugar, things like that, cholesterol levels. You can share that information with big data or different research companies and things. That's not identifiable. But when you're actually giving up your DNA to a company, that's your fingerprint. That is identifiable. It doesn't matter how much you give or what. It is your fingerprint. So when we were doing this, we were doing a lot of nutrigenomic testing back years ago, and we found out that a lot of the companies were selling the data on the back end. And I got to where I didn't want to send my patients to these companies. And this was probably, 7 or 8 years ago that we did this. And so we started our own. That's basically, we were the first to market data privacy in the industry. And now I think there's a couple other labs that are marketing it too, but you really don't know. We're a family owned company, very small. We have our own servers. Things are on different servers. Even if we got hacked, you're not going to be able to get anything from us, essentially. So we've been really focused on data privacy and security.
I love that, because I've had so many people walk into my office with these massive reports going, I know it's getting sent to pharmaceutical companies or other organizations, and that really mortifies them, right? Because even though they're signing away their permission in the fine print, right, that they don't realize that they're signing, they're not interested in sharing that. It's really meant for personal use. Yeah.
And it's something even now we can sit around and kick around conspiracy theories about what they can do with it. But to be honest, we have no idea. And it's kind of a Pandora's box type situation. We really don't know.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Actually, this was kind of cool. So I had this theory, and I was watching TV with my mom maybe about 2 years ago, and it was a CSI Miami show about exactly what I was saying, years ago. It's kind of cool. But, if you have someone's DNA, their genetic makeup for every protein, every receptor, everything in their body, and you can target different viruses and things at these different genes, kind of like how COVID targets the ACE receptor. You can target this with other viruses, and mass genocide, you could basically eradicate somebody based off a certain gene, potentially. I'm not, a virucologist or anything, but I've been told by some that is doable. And that was actually on a CSI Miami show. They were targeting, I think, melanin in the skin of darker individuals of like Cuban origin, I believe. And they were all really sick. And they found out it was some rogue scientist that was doing it. So
you might have a nighttime job if the day job doesn't work out, right? Either writing for CSI or planning mass terrorism.
That might be kind of fun.
Oh, don't say that. I don't know. The CSI part fun, maybe the mass terrorism, not so much.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely the CSI part.
Not so much. Okay, so let's back up for a second, because I'm going to assume there's people out there listening that are already lost, right? Like this whole study of nutrigenomics and DNA testing. Can you take us back to like basics? Like, what is this? What is your DNA? What does it make up? What does it tell us? Let's go back to genetics. Those books like Reading for Dummies, Genetics for Dummies, and give us all the basics so we can all get caught up to your level of knowledge on genetic testing.
So I like to refer to the DNA as kind of a recipe book. My mom had this recipe book. We'd flip to the apple pie, or my mom makes really good pumpkin pie. And we ate it this weekend. Man, it was great. So each gene is basically a recipe for a protein or a pie. And different people make different kinds of pies. Like my mom's pumpkin pie, I'll put it against anybody's. It's great. You set that on the table, it's gone. So it's going to be eaten up real fast. But my mom, I hope she doesn't hear this, but she can't make apple pie to save her life. It's terrible. Like, it'll sit there and nobody will eat it. And, sorry, Mom. So my family's recipe book is really strong in certain recipes and really weak in others. Like I didn't know what garlic was until I went to college. So, so that's how I like to explain it. And these little ingredients and recipe that we add can change. So, and that's what makes us different. And we're looking at these changes in the recipes of our proteins and how it affects us. And we're able to supplement with different things. Say my mom's apple pie recipe doesn't have cinnamon or something. Well, let's supplement with some cinnamon and make that pie a little better. And that's essentially what we're doing here. So if someone has, for instance, the MTHFR gene that everybody is talking about right now, you don't make enough methylfolate. You just don't. So and you have to have methylfolate to produce, neurotransmitters, degradate neurotransmitters associated with depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, you name it. It's 400 different pathways. And if you bypass that gene variant with methylfolate, you just supplement them with methylfolate, all of a sudden their brains turn back on, they feel better, and it can be an instant change, almost like adding cinnamon onto an apple crisp or apple pie. All of a sudden it's good again, or sugar, and that's essentially what we're doing with nutrigenomics.
Oh my gosh, I love the analogy. But okay, here's the crazy question. Like, I'm thinking about pumpkin pie. Like, I'm a terrible baker. I don't think I could pull off a pumpkin pie if my life depended on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if my recipe is really that bad and I could never bring a pumpkin pie to the table, is there still something that we can do about that? Or are we just so damaged we can't bake?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's kind of where we get into miscarriages and things like that. If someone has multiple, so like MTHFR, we'll go a little deeper on this. You got the C677 and the 1298. You never see somebody with homozygous variants on both of those. You never see them. Like, I think I've seen it maybe one time, and it may be lab error. But that's just not compatible with life. So they're not going to survive past, out of the womb for very long without supplementation. So yeah, it can be that bad.
But I think, to your point, we're not doomed either, right? Based on our genetic or a recipe. There are things that we could facilitate change to, where maybe those that are struggling with miscarriages really could make a difference in order to have a successful pregnancy.
Absolutely huge. I used to say I was really good at getting women pregnant, and our PR told me I couldn't say that anymore. So I figured I could say that on your podcast, but really good at that, because this is a big deal with infertility.
It is. It's funny you say that. It reminds me of a story. I've been in practice 25 years, and I think it was my first year in practice. I had a woman come to me who, claimed to be infertile. And I hate that word, because I think we are fertile.
Absolutely.
I don't think we're infertile. I think we have to work on fertility. And anyway, long story short, it wound up being her thyroid. She had some thyroid issues. We got the thyroid balanced, and she conceived. She's got a beautiful son who actually is now a freshman in college. And I remember seeing her husband for the first time after she got pregnant, and he gave me this huge hug, and he goes, "Thank you so much for getting my wife pregnant." And I went, "Oh, honey, that was all you." I can't take I don't have the right body parts, and I can't be responsible for that. But, we help patients fix their terrain, right? In order to be able to conceive better. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and it's more important nowadays than it ever has been.
Yeah, and fertility is a big topic for you, right?
Mm-hmm, huge.
Why so important?
Well, it's because to me, it's all about the kids. We have to take care of the kids, and that starts 6 months before conception. And as you know, we need to, especially in this day and age with autism rates skyrocketing, ADD, ADHD. I mean, these kids are on so many medications. And they've got these gene variants, and then they're coming home. They've been told to take Tylenol. They're injecting God knows what. They're doing, taking them home to a nursery. They painted the walls, VOCs, smells like paint. They put new carpet in there. It's off-gassing VOCs. They're washing the sheets in fabric softener so it's nice and soft. It's got chemical shitstorm. These kids have no chance, especially if the mom's eating badly. The dad's putting 2,4-D on the yard and toxic chemicals everywhere, and there's glyphosate in the baby formula. They have no chance nowadays. So, and all this starts at birth or conception, and that leads into adulthood, and then we have to fix them later too. So, if we get them sooner, the better with this stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was a report that came out quite a few years ago. I know it's published on ewg.org. That states we are born with over 247 cord chemicals, and I'm sure that number is higher, but that we can document just through placental transfer. So before we take our first breath, we've already been exposed to some pretty bad stuff.
Yep, it's terrible.
So the tests that you've designed, how do we look at certain DNA markers then? Let's say we take somebody who's interested in conceiving, both male and female, because they both play a role.
Absolutely.
What are we looking for on some of those tests in order to help facilitate change before that conception that'll really, make a difference?
Do you know who Wally Schmidt is? Did you
Sure.
ever? I love Wally. Rest in peace, buddy. He was one of the first doctors, functional med guys I really trained under. I took all 14, 18 courses of him twice, went through it twice. And the one thing he hammered into us is you treat the patient with the disease, not the disease the patient has, and you treat what you find. you treat what you find. So I've taken that approach with the tests to start at the basics. In fact, I don't know if you know this, my new panels are actually basically in Wally's format. What to do first, second, and last. We're handling fatty acid metabolism and histamine in the beginning because that influences so many things down the road, from neurotransmitter to hormones to, thyroid, of course, methylation, all of that stuff, oxidative stress. So, fixing what we find, I think, is an important thing to bring up when you ask me that question. But there is so many things that can influence that fertility thing, from folate. But before you start working on folate, you really need to get the inflammation under control. You need to get the fatty acids under control, and minerals like iodine. And we know iodine is huge for brain growth. I think, 20% increase in IQ with the mothers supplementing with iodine, and the magnesium and all these basic things that we really need to start foundationally with these people before we get into the hormones and the thyroid and the methylfolate. But the methylfolate's huge with these people, especially with clotting issues and spontaneous abortions and miscarriages.
Yeah, it's interesting. For 25 years, we've been running a lot of blood labs and micronutrient testing to look and see where the dysfunctions are. And, full transparency, I'd been through quite a few different genetics companies until I landed on yours. And it is my favorite and the only one that we use at this point. But it was fascinating to me because sometimes we just weren't getting people well, or we didn't have a good explanation, even at that baseline work, why the blood sugar was dysregulated or why they were having a sensitivity to a certain food. And now I find that this almost needs to come before we run even the blood labs, right? To give us that what to look for and almost the why versus the what. Does that make sense?
Oh, I'll take it a step further. I think you need to have this information before visit 1, before you do an intake. If you have the genetic predisposition in front of you of the patient, your intake and your questions are going to be 10 times better. You're going to know what labs to order too. So, if you see some of these folate issues and, a CD320 SNP on the B12 receptor, you're going to want to do an intracellular test for that. So I think it's huge to know this at day 1 of the exam.
Okay, so now I'm going to piggyback on that, and I'm going to put this out there for everybody because most of the patients we're running these tests on are already in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Why wouldn't we start running this like at birth?
I think we should. Our testing, we use a cheek swab. So you don't have to sit there and spit into a tube for 30 minutes. Have a kid doing that. You can't, it's not feasible, but we run it on kids all the time. We get emails all the time about how old do they have to be, like day 0, like day 1, like start sticking their mouth swab. I think this is huge info.
Right. And nothing changes, right? This is a one-time test. Yeah. So the genes are the genes. So if we test our little ones, right, day 0, or, maybe we give them a week or 2 to get home, right? But, when they're really that young, we have this information. I would have to think that we could potentially offset some illnesses and pretty significant diseases knowing this information 20, 30, 60 years before it pops onto a blood test.
Correct. Absolutely.
So why do you think in today's medical health environment, this isn't standard of care where, you're born, whether it's a home or a hospital setting, and by the way, you're getting a genetic test?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I may get on a soapbox here about this, but what we do, what you and I do in practice, we're optimizing health. We're functional. We're getting people to feeling good. The standard medical model is to keep you from being sick or to treat the sickness. So and this is a big misconception with our test specifically. Somebody will run my test and go to a medical geneticist with it, and they're like, "What is this?" And it's just not. They're not trained in this. I'm not trained in, genetic based diseases and those types of things. So there are some genetic screenings they do on newborns, but it's for pathogenic stuff, like really, really sick kids. They're not looking at these variants like we look at for, nutritional deficiencies or these optimizing the lifestyle of the patient. So it's a big difference there. I feel like, but there is some genetic testing on some kids early on, but I think we should be doing a little more. And I think the other thing too is there's not a whole lot of research in what we're doing, especially as you know in nutrition, because you don't have pharmaceutical backing for this research studies. So a lot of the studies that we've had to use are cancer studies, drug studies, mainly cancer, a lot of cancer and different viral things that we've looked at, just because there's no real research on the nutritional aspect of it. And I think as technology improves and AI becomes more useful, I think we'll see more and more of this enter mainstream medicine. But right now, it's just not.
Now, is this something we could use? I always hate to bring up COVID because I think people are sick of hearing about COVID, but the problem is
Yeah.
COVID's never going to go away, right? Like
Nope.
that's part of our society. Do you think whether it's COVID or any other virus or infection, your test is something that people then could use in order to, like, let's say, how would I react potentially should I come into contact with something that's severe? And what can I do preemptively so that if I do come into contact, I don't react poorly?
Yeah. Directly, sort of, a lot of, in my opinion with that, you just need to be overall healthy to go fighting anything, whether it's COVID, whether it's a motorcycle accident, car accident. You don't know what's going to happen to us. Is the resilience factor of being human. And if you do this type of testing and you implement the instructions and the lifestyle, the resilience your body's going to have to anything is going to improve, not just, I can't say cancer, but I'm going to say cancer, viral infections like COVID, anything really, I feel like. Even getting in a car accident. If you're in a hospital, I'd hope that my cardiovascular system is in shape and everything, and I'm healthy enough to sit in a hospital bed for a month and not move. Those are the things that we need to really take into account. Is what could happen? Are we really going to be, how strong are you? Are you in the gym working out? Are you, these things? It's really important, especially if some catastrophic thing happens to someone. But as far as COVID goes, yeah, there's a lot of research on the glutathione pathways and the antioxidant support of it. The ACE receptor is polymorphic, so that's actually in our test too. There is some genes that are going to give you a predisposition to severe COVID. We know that now. And I think some of those are in the test. We didn't really target COVID essentially, but we do have some on there.
So what made you pick the genes that you picked?
Oh, man. So I was using a lot of other labs, 7 or 8 years ago. So there were the genes that I wanted to look at, and there were genes that I wanted to look at that the companies weren't looking at. So that's another reason we went and did this ourselves. But ours are really coming off of research studies, peer-reviewed studies that show we should be looking at them. We've got a lot of influence from a lot of doctors. We have around 2,000-3,000 doctors around the world that use this right now. So I get a lot of feedback back. They're like, hey, can we look at this gene? I'm like, well, what is it? Send me the data. Oh, this is cool. Let's add it in. Absolutely. So it's been kind of a culmination of thousands and thousands of research studies we've had to sit here and read. Doctors that are industry leading shoot us some ideas and review what we're doing and give us recommendations. So it's really been kind of a mixture of that.
How many genes are you currently testing?
I believe 200.
200 genes. And this may not be a fair question, but are there some that just always seem to be problematic? Is there a handful that you would say the majority of us as Americans are struggling with?
That's the beauty of it. No, you never know what's going to pop up. Now, I've seen some patterns with, autism. You see some patterns with thyroid and autoimmune. So there are patterns that are disease kind of specific, but you never really know. Like my neighbor, she had an ammonia issue, an upregulated CBS. And I'm like, well, why don't you just try this ammonia scavenger from Professional Health Products? And she calls me like 2 days later. She's like, Chad, my bowel movements are regular now. And I'm like, oh, what? She's like, yeah, I'm going to the bathroom twice a day now. She's like, normally it was like once a week. She's like, could this have been that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely it could have. You never know what's going to show up. And you never know what downstream pathways are going to improve when you fix the upstream.
Oh my gosh, there's nothing I would love better than a phone call about somebody's poop. It's one of my favorite subjects. Good poop is good poop, right?
Yeah, just don't send me the pictures.
Oh, see, and I love the pictures.
I bet you do.
I don't actually want to touch it. I mean, you don't have to give me a live sample, but the pictures are so telling. It's
mm-hmm. And While we're talking on genetics, the cheek swab, it's this cheek, not that cheek.
Oh,
We get some brown samples every now and then, and
you do not.
yeah, we're PhDs is a PhD in microbiology. He's like, Chad, I know shit when I see shit. Like,
Oh no. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sometimes when you think the instructions are pretty simple.
it happens.
Yeah.
A lot
Not
comes from
so
Donnie Thompson's office too. So
That's well, that's a whole nother conversation, right? Sometimes it might be the practitioner, not
Mhm.
necessarily the test. So
Yeah, I had some professors I've always kind of accidentally wanted to send a stool test to from college. Oh, whoops! Hope you open that.
little complimentary gift without
Yep.
prompting.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So I have to tell you, interestingly enough, one of the favorite parts of your genetic test is around diet and exercise. And I'm going to tell you a story and tell all the listeners a story because this is why genetics is so fascinating to me. So remember when keto came out, the keto diet?
Yeah.
Remember, it was the greatest thing on earth. Everybody loved it. They were feeling great. Energy was awesome. They were losing tons of weight. Well, I went on the keto diet and I eat really healthy anyway. And I love eggs and avocado and salmon and, olive oil. Like I eat all the good fats. I love all the good fats. So I went on the keto diet and I upped all of my good fats and a bit of my protein. I didn't do bacon. I didn't do ice cream. I still kept a really good, clean diet. And in 7 days, I gained 7 pounds and I got crabby. Now, nobody in my family can attest to this. Nobody wants to see me crabby. It's not pleasant. I have two temperatures, right? Really happy, really not happy. So I was really crabby. And I thought, this is ridiculous, right? Like this clearly doesn't work for me. Anyway, you kind of move along. And I went back to my genetic testing and I realized I had the FTSO gene, the fatso gene. That's my favorite one because it's just fun to say I have the fatso gene. Well, now you move forward a bunch of years and I actually wound up retesting with you anyway, because again, I was experiencing with new labs, and not that you have to retest your genes because they're the same, but I wanted to experience your lab. And then menopause happened to me. And for those of you out there that are going, oh, I know what's coming next, the weight gain, the change in where the body fat is, the belly I never had, all that junk that just never seemed to have a good explanation when you eat well and you exercise. And it was fascinating because I was able to go back through your genetic test, which talks about not only the different macros and how they respond. So knowing, again, I had to really cut back on the amount of fat content I was eating. It wasn't caloric intake. It wasn't junk food. It was good fats. But it also let me take a look at where I was prone potentially for injury through certain sport, what type of activity. For instance, HIIT training is really great for my physique versus gentle yoga, which is good because I actually don't like yoga. Anyway, you can't talk through a hot yoga session, Chad. So I get
yeah, that's not for you.
No, I get kicked out of those quite regularly. So I gave up yoga. But it was fascinating because especially for a lot of us who aren't in tune to the right macros, the right diet, the right sport, just spending the money on that was life-changing because, and I want you to talk a little bit to this. Like you see people that go to the gym, they're working hard, right? They're doing the same things. They're there every day for an hour and a half in the gym and their body, their physique never changes. Does that all have to do potentially with going back down to our genes and because we're actually just not taking care of them the right way?
Could be. Yeah, it really could be. There's resistance training versus endurance. Yeah, I think it's a big deal. And I think a lot of people overtrain too, and the resistance and the ability to train is genetic too. Some people just can't train that much and they're prone to overtraining, and then you're just not going to do anything if you're killing yourself in the gym. I think that's something I see a lot.
And it's hard to have that conversation with people, right? Because they think more is better.
Extremely.
Right? They're doing something great. They're getting off the couch, and yet maybe the 20 minutes a day is really what they need versus the 2 hours.
Correct. Yeah. And the same thing with the food. I still see people who are counting calories and I'm just like, what are you doing? We're not in the 1980s anymore. So
yeah, it was fascinating for me. It was really the change in the percentage of micros that I was eating in order to take off a few pounds, Yeah.
And there's genes too with dairy. I had a couple weightlifters who were trying to slim down. This is years ago. They're like, Chad, I can't lose this last 6-7 pounds. And I'm looking at them like, how do you have 7 pounds to lose? Like you're whatever. And I'm like, well, your genes say are you eating dairy because you have this APOA2 gene? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, cut dairy and see what happens. Came back a week later, like, dude, I lost it. gone. Like, well, there you go. It's dairy. Don't eat it again. So there's different foods that we know, specific foods like dairy and wheat and peanuts and these things that people are going to react to worse than others. So, I mean, that could be, the optimal diet, not just from macro, but an actual food, specific food.
Yeah. It's so easy when you have the information.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think, this is something I would love, and forgive the sales pitch here, but I'm going to make the sales pitch to everybody listening. Like, you run the test once, like this is a no-brainer, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
should get this test, do it the one time, because the information that's provided can save you a lot of heartache and a lot of money and a lot of trial and error, whether it is
Yep.
food, exercise, or just lifestyle, diet, and disease, how to take the right steps and make the right decisions without
Yeah.
wasting a lot of years.
That's a good point. There's this other chiro that trolls me some. He's like, oh, genetics don't matter. It's all epigenetic. And I'm like, bro, there's thousands and thousands of epigenetic factors that we can modify. But if you look at the DNA, you're going to cut it down to what you really should focus on. And I think that's a big part you just mentioned. This saves so much time. It'll pay for itself in wasted supplements and diet. And I mean, it literally pays for itself.
It does. It's so interesting. And I think, that's the beauty of what you're doing in this space is you're also providing something at a really lovely price point that doesn't, forgive me, rip people off. And I think that's really important for people to realize is, you can spend, hundreds or you can spend thousands getting a whole lot less information.
Yep.
And, why? I'm not sure why we have that sort of society that feels like, a handful of genes for $1,000 is really going to help anybody in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, we're seeing a lot of people jump on that bandwagon of the $600 to $1,000 test. I'm not going to name names on it. A lot of influencers are jumping on that too, because at $1,000, there's a lot of profit to be given out, and unfortunately, a lot of people have sold out to make money. And we try to keep things, like price wise well. And really was why we started. A third reason we started this company was because I was seeing patients and I was seeing these mothers of autistic kids who were working in, I think I had a Hooters waitress for a while. She's coming in paying, it's not cheap to come to a functional med doctor. It's not. It was $1,000 first visit, for me out the gate. And then supplements and then the dietary changes, all this costs money. I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So really the first test we ever launched was targeted for spectrum kids and what to do with them. And it told you exactly what to do and how to eat. And it was basically a functional med doctor in a box. It's one, you get basically what I would do with that patient on the report. So we've really tried to make it affordable and keep it affordable because there's really no need to charge $600 to $1,000. Now, if you're doing full genome sequencing, you need to spend that much. The full genome sequencing that I'm seeing right now, that around $200-$300 is a waste of money. A couple Black Friday sales I'm not going to mention, but yeah, money's a big deal.
Sometimes you do get what you pay for, and it's okay to spend a little to get good quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that really impresses me about MaxGenLabs is I can count on the quality, I can count on the accuracy. I can call you if I have a question.
Yep.
It's not some big corporation where I get lost in some red tape trying to get an answer about a patient. And I trust. And I think that's huge in medicine to make sure that when you do spend, again, whether it's $5 or $5,000, that you're really trusting the information that's being provided back to you as a patient.
Yeah. And lab error is a thing. And there's a couple competitors of ours that actually send samples to China for processing. So
wow,
we're all US based, in-house. Nothing's outside of our control.
I love that. So
yeah.
What's next in this field? What's on the horizon? What can we, look for? Is there anything exciting going on?
I think we're working with a couple other doctors. I probably shouldn't name their names, but on some AI software that's coming soon. I really think AI is going to revolutionize everything in the coming next 10 years. Obviously, right now, I don't think it's good. And I probably should bring this up too. I'm seeing a lot of patients that are inputting their genetics into, AI like ChatGPT and asking it what to do. I'm doing that myself, kind of watching what it's doing, and I'm using it, for research purposes, and it's not up to par. So I'm going to advise against that now. But I think here soon we're going to see a really big jump in, not only our ability to recommend lifestyle changes and nutrients based off genetics, but the technology itself, I think, is going to skyrocket. So turnaround times are going to improve, pricing will improve. I think we'll see really good big jumps in the next 10 years.
That is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Chad, if you had a motto for MaxGenLabs and what you're doing, what would the motto be?
Oh man, we were actually talking about this last night. I think we were talking something along the lines of helping kids and helping families, and that's what we do.
It's amazing. It's really exciting to see. I know it's been a life game changer for me and for my patients. It helps guide me as a clinician. It's certainly helping patients. The last thing I would really love for you to address though, because I know there's some people going out there, I don't want to know, right?
Yeah.
I get that sometimes. Like, I don't want to, if I can't change my genes, I don't want to know what they are because I'm going to be scared and worried and it's going to cause a panic. How can we help people overcome that fear? Because it's just so important to know.
Absolutely. And I'll tell us a case study on this too. I'll make it quick. APOE is the one everybody's scared of. They don't want to know because it's the best predictor of Alzheimer's and dementia. APOE4 is like a significant increased risk in dementia and Alzheimer's. Knowledge is power. If we know these things, we can do things to try to help prevent these things. And I had a dementia patient once that come to me. She was in her mid-50s, early onset. She called my office every day. Why am I seeing Dr. Chad? Why am I seeing this? What took her 2 hours to fill out my intake form, which was not that long back then. And she got in, we started talking like, oh, this makes sense. She can barely remember what happened 5 minutes ago. She'd been to Mayo Clinic. She'd been to Vanderbilt. They said, go home, make arrangements. And she came in, she's like, money's not an issue. We'll do whatever we need to do. And okay, let's do it. Genetics. She had a bunch of detox genes, just a horrible methylation pattern. Some CYPs were all screwy. And I'm like, well, let's support you nutritionally. We did. And I said, we've got to work with your husband. And we also did a urine environmental toxin test. It lit up like a Christmas tree, And I'm like, whoa, this is the worst I've ever seen. So we got her in a sauna and we got her on the correct nutrition. 2 months later, about a month later, she stopped calling my office every day. She's still coming in and I wasn't, I saw her once or twice and she was coming and doing sauna sessions and buying her supplements and doing anything right. She was improving. And I think 2 or 3 months later, she called and was like, hey, I'm good to go. I just really want to appreciate you guys. Thank you. Left a voicemail on the voice. I'm like, you could at least talk to us. But, we almost basically a full recovery, and this, so genetics is not, a definitive thing here. It's definitely things we can modify and things we can make changes based off this. And I think it's huge to know these things because if we don't know these things, you're going to end up in a bad position. So, and some people are, if we can't get in there quickly and fix it.
So everybody needs to know you're not stuck. Right?
Not stuck.
That information doesn't mean you're stuck. It just gives you something in order to facilitate a change to become unstuck.
Right.
I love it.
And there's no genes that we look at that have every gene we look at has an actionable thing we can do.
Right.
So it's not just, you're going to get cancer. See ya.
Right. You can affect every single one of them that's run. So really, there's nothing to be afraid of because there is a plan.
Correct.
There is a plan. I love it. All right, Chad, we're going to take a quick break, listen to our sponsors, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to send at you some rapid fire questions, see what you can come up with. You up for that?
I guess.
Yeah. We don't always give everybody a choice, but nobody's backed out yet. So we're going to try it, see how it goes. Everybody sit tight, give us a minute, and we'll be right back with Dr. Chad Yarbrough. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. Welcome back, everybody. We've got Dr. Chad Yarbrough, and this is the rapid fire portion of the Positively Altered podcast. All right, Chad, here we go. Just first thing that comes to mind.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Okay, here we go. If you were the ruler of the universe, who would you trust to drive your chariot?
Elon Musk. I think that'd be fun.
Really?
Yeah. God knows where we'd end up.
You'd have to plug that in before you go. You know what? I'll tell you, this is why it's never rapid fire, because I always have a comment based on your answers. But I had a really weird dream a few weeks ago that I was with Elon Musk. He was driving me to the airport. Strange. And then it got weirder because those weird, I don't even know what they are, but the cars, they're all silver, right? That he's putting out.
No, the trucks.
The silver trucks. Yeah. I asked him when he was going to come out with a hot pink one because I didn't want a silver one. I wanted to buy a hot pink one.
You can wrap it.
Right? So I'm waiting for a hot pink one, and then maybe I will purchase that. So, okay. I think he might take you to Mars, but I think he'd be a good chariot driver.
Yeah, we definitely hit Mars first, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure. And the new Earth. Did you hear they discovered a new Earth?
No.
Yes. I didn't read the article, so it might be fake news. I'm not sure, but they think there's a new Earth out there. So maybe he can take us there. All right. If you had to change your name, just like you have to change your password, what would you change your name to?
Alan. It's my middle name.
Is it? How do you spell Alan?
A-L-A-N.
A-L-E-N?
A-L-A-N.
A-N. Oh, see, that's the right way to spell it, I think. My dad's name is Alan.
Yeah,
and everybody spells
mine
it
was
wrong.
Too. So,
yeah.
But easy for me to remember.
Very.
I can't remember passwords to save my life.
I know, that's why most of us use the same one over and over, don't we?
Yeah,
we're not supposed to. Yeah, it's crazy.
We're derivatives of.
Yes. All right. If all animals could be domesticated, what would you pick as your family pet?
An elephant, maybe? Elephants are cool.
Do you have room for an elephant in the house?
I would make room.
Wow.
Outdoor pet.
Outdoor pet. See, now that brings me back to that whole poop conversation.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Fertilizer.
Yeah. You're going to need a big yard, my friend.
A shovel.
A big yard and a big shovel. Absolutely. All right. If you could make any food breakfast food that isn't normally breakfast food, what would you pick?
Shrimp.
Shrimp for breakfast. And how would you cook it?
Pan fried or baked?
Pan fried. That was a really quick answer.
Because I do that a lot. Iodine. Steak and shrimp for breakfast over here all the time.
Oh my gosh, that's great. All right. And I never understood that. Like, why there has to be breakfast food for breakfast. Like, why can't all food just be eaten at any time of the day?
I do.
Yeah. Who came up with that? Do you know?
I don't know. Kellogg's.
Oh, so now we're poisoning everybody with the cereal.
Exactly. You said it.
No, it's true. I actually, on the same probably fake news feed that I was reading this morning about the next Earth, there was actually, and I didn't open this one either, they actually said that pizza is a healthier choice for breakfast than cereal. Kind of makes you think about that.
It might actually be. You got some protein on it.
I think they're actually correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Minus the plastics and everything else.
Yeah, might have to agree.
All right. So pizza it is for everybody. Dairy-free, gluten-free, sugar-free pizza for everybody.
The pizza for breakfast podcast.
The pizza. You know what? I like that. The pizza for breakfast podcast.
Yeah.
All right. I already have my title, so somebody can steal that if they want. All right. Last but not least. Oh, I have two more, actually. This is the last, kind of real question. What is your favorite body part and why?
Favorite body part? I mean, come on, Cindy. I'm a guy.
Well, if you answer it that way, there's a few you can choose from.
My earlobe. Come on.
That's fair. I guess we could ask the question, your favorite body part on somebody else or your favorite body part on yourself?
Yeah, you might want to specify that.
All right, we'll go with yourself because we know your answer for the other one then.
I think I'm going to plead the fifth.
Are you? All right, we're going to let you. That's okay. Maybe in the comments section under the podcast, people can guess. And if they guess correctly what your favorite body part is on yourself, we'll give them a discount off the genetic test. How's that?
There we go. We can do that.
All right. We might as well make this, adventurous and profitable, right?
Might as well.
Off your favorite body part. All right. And lastly, my friend Chad, what was your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
It's been fun talking with you, as always.
Oh my gosh, Chad, you're great. Tell me, how can everybody get a hold of you? How can they find the company? Where are you on social media? If people want to check you out, where do they go?
Well, we have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page, MaxGenLabs, and we'll post a link in your notes as well for the testing if somebody wants to look into it.
I absolutely love that. So we'll make it available to everybody. It is absolutely a fantastic test. I highly recommend it. I will tell you that the favorite thing about doing the podcast today was also chatting with you. We got to do this a little bit differently. Sometimes we show up to speaking events together, and it was great to just dive in a little bit more to the company and what's important to you and what makes it roll. And I really appreciate your time today. For those of you that want to learn more about what's going on in my world, come check us out at drscindyspeaks.com, or you can shoot us an email at hello@drscindyspeaks, and check us out. Communicate with us. We'd love to hear from you and see what's going on in your world. And again, in the program notes will be a link for the genetic test. If you are interested, we would love to help you get the proper information from a reputable lab doing it the right way. Dr. Chad, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Positively Altered podcast.